Hello! It's Sunday. There are things to clean, so there can only be one thing. I'm here in the Museum of Computing in Swindon. I haven't got Neil this week, he's off visiting family, but I do have Mrs. TDO, and this week she's agreed to take the hot seat in Moderation Corner. Come on! Can you all hear me? This is hopefully the last stream that I'm doing from my mobile phone. So, is the music too loud? As soon as Joe's come on, I'm thinking, ooh, the music's too loud. So, how are we doing? Sound okay? Well, I'm going to take that as an okay for the minute. And I'm going to open up this cabinet and give it one. Let's see what we've got. Now we're going to get off to a flying start this Sunday because the first machine in here is the Dragon 32. And this one is looking particularly clean because if you've seen it on my channel, this is the actual machine that I've completely taken apart, cleaned all the keys, everything's been cleaned. It was made working again because it had a broken crystal oscillator. But yeah, flying start, so I don't have to clean that one. And I'm going to put that at the front there. So the next one Texas Instruments TI-99, and this is the /448. And this one's particularly nice because it's got this, well, I presume it is a metallic, it is actually an aluminium, or mainly stainless steel, but I think it's more brushed aluminium surface, and you don't see that often on many computers. This one's not too bad, it's got a cartridge in it, so we've got some dirt around it. Keyboard as usual, a lot of dirt there. So how are we doing? How's everybody doing this Sunday afternoon?
Say hello. Aidan says can't stay, it's 1 AM after work.
1 AM? Wow.
Watch it later.
Where are you coming in from? 1 AM, so that would be, oh, is that backwards or forwards? Let us know, where are you coming in from, Aidan?
I'm going to turn the music down as a consequence.
Yes, please. We've scared Mrs. TDO away already. No, not really, it's just that we set the music the wrong level. I think a little bit lower. Yeah. Bit lower. That's great. It's great for me. If it's not for you, let me know.
Can't hear it all then.
Cartridges on the Texas just slide out easily. What have we got in this one? Munchman. Now I'm guessing Munchman is very likely going to be a Pac-Man rip-off. This is 1982, so it's about the right era for Pac-Man. A little bit of dirt, so let's get the...
Aidan's in New Zealand.
New Zealand! Wow, that is a country I want to come and see. Looks beautiful. I was very much into the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and it just looks a beautiful place. Right, so we've got the isopropyl alcohol in diluted in deionized water, and it's about, well, it's over 95% water, so it's a very weak solution. So apart from having to work, which is not great, what is everybody doing?
It's nearly Monday, isn't it?
Monday, yes. I do you know what? I spent most of Saturday thinking it was Sunday. Most of Friday thinking it was Saturday.
I should be aware then.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm coming or going. Friday was an interesting day because I was back here again. I don't know if you've seen on the socials. Fusion magazine wanted to do a signing, so they had various people that needed to come from throughout the UK, and here was a very good place. It was close to obviously Neil, so he had the least distance to travel, and it was a nice way for them to all meet up, and I got to meet some lovely people, and it was here that they were signing it. In fact, one of the bits that I've got to clean is a bit of a pen mark where Neil got a bit exuberant with signing with his lovely gold pen, and he kind of just, I don't know, he kind of continued off onto the table, but it looks like it'll come off with some IPA. There's nothing special about this table. It's just a sturdy table for cleaning and hosting. In fact, we got this to host a display for a local council thing where I almost got burnt by the sun. Well, I did get burnt by the sun. Right, so that's the cartridge. Mrs. TDO's toothbrushing, thankfully not her current one.
I often use when I finish using it.
I believe several people commented last week that it was nice to see Mrs. TDO sort of take an interest in what I do, and she's really good like that. But she also manages to bring what she really loves doing, which is her knitting. And that, as that goes with her pretty much everywhere, as long as she brings it, if she has to wait around whilst I'm, I don't know, doing whatever here, would you say you're happy? She's happy.
Did Neil sign it with a flourish, announce no photos, and flounce off, proper celeb style?
You know Neil well. No, he's very good, and we went for a curry next door, which was interesting. That's the first time I've eaten out since March really. But as it was a lunchtime, it was very empty and quiet, so that was good. I think the main dirty part is the keyboard on this one. So I'm getting a nice thin key brush. Let's see if we can get in there. Oh, I'm not wearing my marigolds. No. Ooh. Okay, they do have them over there. I should really put them on because then I don't have to wash my hands. Yeah. Good reminder. Good reminder. They're not marigolds anyway. They're grease monkeys.
So Hoover is a generic term.
Yeah.
It's a brand, basically.
Yeah, they're not. They're thinner than marigolds, but they're thicker than your average sort of latex. I think that music's getting shut out again. So I think I need to normalise the music. But hopefully, as I said at the beginning, this is the last time I'll be streaming from the phone because I took delivery of a reconditioned i5, which I hope I can set all up and have OBS. I can bring my radio mics in. We can use multiple cameras, that kind of stuff. The usual thing you would expect from a quality stream, rather than some guy in pretty orange gloves streaming off of his phone.
Costado says hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Costado. What are you doing with your Sunday apart from watching me and Mrs. DDO?
Psycho Fox asks, will you be giving a little tour later in the street?
Ooh, maybe.
Tiny over there.
Yeah, I'm not quite set up for that yet. Psychofox. It's the sort of thing that what I want to do is to get that computer now with the proper mics, and so we don't sort of trip over everything. I'm a bit, once I've set what I've set up here, I'm always a bit wary of moving it and touching it too much because things break.
Start this because I was playing with my GDE Emu modded Dreamcast. Does that mean?
Oh, right, yes. Now that reminds me, I'm surely not the only person who does this, right? Which is to order something, get all worked up about it, take delivery on it, put it over there and think, I'll get round to that, and then kind of forget about it and move on to something else, because I've got a GDMU sat there waiting for me to mod a Dreamcast, because Dreamcast is a really good console. It's a shame what happened to it, really, I think, but I didn't have one from new, but back in about early 2000s, when people had started to get rid of them, I did pick some up at a car boot, and I had a really good collection, which stupidly I then sold a few years later. But I really enjoyed Power Stone, Shenmue, Silent Scope, things like that. I had what did I have? I had the VGA adapter, that was it, and it was on a plasma screen, so it looked really good.
Stardust says he finally received the 3D printed insert with SD card extender.
Ah, yes. Is that one of the ones off of eBay? It's sort of like red or something like that. I did see those. They do look neat.
To buy all those games again would cost him 50 pennies.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones says nice t-shirt.
Right. So, Alan, hello. This is a t-shirt that my good friend Alan and his wife bought me. And it says, I tried it at home because... should I tell this story?
It's your story.
Yeah, it's my story. So the reason they've got this with this little man running around in fire is because when I was a little kid and I had, well, I still got Lego, but you know, when I used to actually sit and play with it, I thought they needed a space station, and typically I'd have a lot of the toys, but not all the big stuff. You know, like you could buy all the big bases and all that extra stuff to go with them, and they were usually expensive stuff. So I'd end up with some of the smaller toys, and then you'd get cardboard, you'd get polystyrene, and you'd make stuff. Right, and one of the things I had that my dad, something my dad had, probably one of his model sets, was this multi-compartment polystyrene box, which was perfect because they were about the right scale for the little Lego men, and they could be in there. And this is their moon base. And on the films, when there's a door in the way and they can't get through it, they get their oxyacetylene torches out, don't they? And they cut their way through, sort of, to get into the next room. Now, obviously, I didn't have an oxyacetylene torch for a little Lego man, but one of my sisters was collecting matchboxes. So I did sneak into her room and I borrowed one of those matchboxes, and then I had a little Lego man with a little lit match, and he used that to burn into the next section, and it started to work really well because if you expose polystyrene to a flame, it sort of melts away, but there's a point at which it actually catches fire, and that's what happened. And I'm not sure how old I was. I'm probably around, I don't know, 6, 7 maybe, and this thing starts, goes up in flames. I'm like, ooh. Well, I probably didn't know any swear words then, so I probably was, oh dear. And I thought, right, I'll throw it out the window. And I opened the window and I went to throw it, and it kind of got a bit hot, so it didn't go out the window, and it went down between the bed, and it started to make the curtain smoulder. So I got my little Blue Bear bubble bath thing that was empty, and I ran and I got some water, and I came back and I ran and got some more water and put it out. And I managed to put it out. And then of course at that point you start thinking, how do I cover up this disaster? Because this is going to get me into trouble. And it was in the process of doing that that I heard somebody say, "What's that smell?" And the game was up, I'm afraid. So, but the thing is though, even though I told that story to my parents, my mum didn't believe me, because this was, I think it was around Christmas time. And if you're in the UK, you know Blue Peter. It's a children's TV program where they cover all current affairs and teach you how to make things and stuff. And one thing they used to do every Christmas, they probably still do, was their Advent crown. Yes. Which was this thing with candles made out of coat hangers and whole lot of tinsel, etc. And my mum was convinced that that's what I must have been doing, despite the fact that I was telling her this much cooler story of Lego men with
evidence of tinsel in your room, wasn't there?
Well, there's no tinsel anyway. So yeah, so that's where the background behind this little guy saying I tried it at home and basically everything's on fire, everything's normal. Move along. There we go. Anybody else accidentally set fire to things?
Alan says thanks for sharing. Rinse Pack says order stuff, get excited and stick it in a corner when it arrives. I only ever do that with everything.
I know, it is a it's almost like the joy of the hunt, isn't it? You go and you hunt this thing down. I'm one of these people that reviews to death things, make sure they get the right thing at the right price from the right place, they get it, and then it just sits there. So I've almost finished sorting out some lighting, RGB lighting for my desk, which I've made a video for anybody who's interested. It's not to edit it yet, but that I bought the parts for last year. So again, sat on the desk, waiting patiently. There are so many things, but that GDMU has probably been waiting the longest, and I'm looking forward to playing with that. Now the only thing I found out after I bought it was that a lot of these things, there's some really clever individual that spent a lot of time, gone out of their way, and they've made it. And they produce it and they sell it from a particular website. And then somebody will come along and go and make that mass produced and sell it really cheap. It's not theirs. They've just done it without permission. The people who made it originally don't get any money from that. And unfortunately, I think that's the version I've ended up with. I was a bit naive and I didn't really know that was going on. So now I know. So when I bought the Jaguar cartridge, I made sure I bought it from the person who'd actually put the effort in. Okay, I'm looking out the window. The man dressed as a phone just walked by with some music playing. I guess he's advertising. That's how he spends his Sunday.
Stardust says we're not all hunter-gatherers for nothing. We hunt, we gather, then hunt some more.
Yes, but it is nice to actually sit down and use the things. On my work bio, I put that this is what I'm into, but I end up spending more time fixing, cleaning, and fixing, cleaning than I do actually playing with the things. It would be nice to get some time to do that. Now, if you've seen on the, not the description for this video, because it doesn't let me do that until afterwards, but on the little tweets and stuff I put out, the museum on its website, www.museumofcomputing.org.uk, has a donate button. And after last week's stream, we had the committee meeting, and I told them about what I'd done here. Because actually I didn't ask for permission to stream, I just did it. So I think they trust me. And apart from being quite amazed that people would actually come and chat and watch me clean computers, they don't understand this side of that. But once they understood that this is something that people like to do, and they went and checked the PayPal account. There we go. There was £75 in there from various donations. I think 5 people donated, and there was even one for reoccurring donation of £5. So whoever that was, I mean, by all means, you know, put your hand up and say it was you. I don't know, because GDPR and all the rest, I don't get to see what was on there. But that is really nice and very kind of you. But if anybody feels like throwing 50p a pound or whatever you want, there is a donate button there. And it would be nice in the future to, you know, do like they do on other streams where things happen on the screen. But at the moment, from my phone, you're lucky I'm probably streaming at the moment. Although, what amazes me is that that is a new phone. As I said last week, I finally, after 7 years, invested in a new phone. I'll back away with my coffee. That even though it's got multiple cameras, the YouTube app gives you no options at all. So come on, YouTube, if you're listening, which I'm sure you're probably not, update your app on your phone so we can do some better stuff. Now this is an interesting thing on the side here. Now I don't know Texas Instrument Machines very well, and I'm guessing this is an add-on because this says speech synthesizer, and it's got a little hatch. And I'm really not sure what's supposed to go in there. Does anybody know? It's got a label on the side that says, to prevent damage to unit from static electricity, do not touch the contacts behind this door. And I'm looking in there and I really don't see an awful lot. Something I need to look into. Does that come off? Oh, there you go, just unplugs like most things. But there is not a lot in there. So the question is, what went in there? And then you got the expansion bus on the side there.
Alex says 7 years is quick for you. I just saw you looking into it. We all saw you do it.
Looking into what? Yeah.
Psycho Fox says I've cleaned more Anvil Scrub PCWs than any other computer. Does the museum have any?
We do, yes. And there's a lot more machines that we've got down in the stores that I need to figure out how to get more things on display. And this is an interesting conversation, because when you've got a small museum in terms of footprint, is how do you get more on display, and is there a point in which, you know, there's basically too much on display and it starts getting busy. But yes, we do have, we've probably got most computers, and I'm aware of some down there that I've never heard of, and I doubt very many people have ever heard of. So the more I can get those sorted and on display, all the better. Well, I guess that's the on-off switch there, with the on-off light. So Alan, why are you watching me? Why aren't you playing with your cars? And when I say playing, you know what I mean.
Psycho Fox wants a stores video.
Yes, I'd love to do a stores video. It's not quite as well set up as I would like yet. So it's when we had the guys from Fusion down on Friday, and they said, "Oh, can we use the toilet?" I said, "Yeah, follow me." And yeah, trying to get them back out of there was very, very hard.
Ben says hi, Keith.
Sorry, who?
Ben Raskin.
Hi Ben, how are you doing? What are you doing on Sunday? apart from watching me.
Alan says he's working. You're just on his background noise.
Oh, you're on shift, are you, Alan? There we go. This one didn't need too much. How are we doing on the bottom of it? Not too bad. Let's give it a little spruce up.
Ben says Office 365 tenancy to tenant migration working.
Ooh. Yes. In my day job as a security architect, that's the sort of thing I would get involved with to make sure it's done securely, although I don't get too much involved. I wasn't on our Office 365 project. It's the sort of thing that it's got to go right, especially as a lot of people working from home rely on it. Certainly I know at our work we do rely on Teams. If that hadn't have been implemented before the lockdown, it would have been interesting, that's for sure. There we go, it's looking a lot shinier.
Alan says you were lucky. Project X, the Office 365.
Oh, yes.
He's only got 5 hours to go.
The main machine looks really good. It's got this brushed, I'm guessing it's brushed aluminium, and most of the time on the brushed aluminium they give it a spray of lacquer to stop it oxidizing. And I think on here there's some strange marks, and I think that's where the it's almost like a lacquer, I think, is slowly coming away, and you're getting some oxidization underneath, but not a lot I can do about that. If I get this cabinet done under the table, I've got something that's come back into the museum that needs a bit of TLC before putting back out on display, so that'll be good.
This pack says, the emergency VPN capacity upgrades due to COVID. And Ben says, IT security manager is my new job from April 2020.
Ooh, very good. I've never had manager in my title. I did have technical centre manager when I was at Dixon's, not Dixon's, at PC World, but I wouldn't say that was really proper management. That was just a ragtag collection of engineers that may or may not destroy your computer if you brought it into them.
Starler says that's a nice system, pretty capable.
It's keeping things like... right, okay, so the warning sign isn't for in there. Behind here, it is the through port for the expansion bus. So it's interesting with these kind of labels where the stickiness is gone, you know, what do you do to try and keep that? So at the moment I'm just going to stay clear of it and not try and do anything with it at the moment. So with my friend Alan saying about putting me on as noise in the background, that's pretty normal then, isn't it, Alan? Isn't it? That's just I'm normally just noise in the background, I think. That's how it feels on some of the projects I'm on. Just noise in the background. There we go.
So how the government take advice.
Oh, don't mention government. We don't get political. This is all about our love of retro computers. When everything was rosy and we didn't care about anything except for the next game or magazine we were going to get. Let's have a look what we got on this sign. Now this sign looks quite quite old in comparison to some of them, so maybe we've had this one quite a little while now. So the Texas TI 99/4A, year 1981, a CPU, TMS 9900, and it had 32K of RAM, and apparently it followed shortly after the TI 99/4, so they had a sort of a, you know, a nice catchy naming system going on there. The main difference being an improved keyboard. Pretty good. It used TI's own microprocessor, the TMS 99,000. Yeah, so I'm going to call it that. A very well specified machine. It featured high-res graphics and impressive 32K of memory, which 81, that is impressive, and a cartridge port. One unusual add-on that is shown on display model is a speech synthesizer module. Kindly donated by Clive Carter. Clive Carter, is that the gentleman that does all the history stuff? That's correct. Alright. There's lots of Carters. Okay. Thank you, Clive. That's very nice of you to donate that to the museum.
So, Winston Hacks asks, so has anyone figured out why the speech synthesizer has a... As the boss says, it's because I just joined, I suspect.
It's really strange because it did that about the same time last week.
Yeah, but we didn't have any problems the first
And then we didn't have any problems any time after that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Check under the table for gremlins, no gremlins. Hopefully you're back with us.
Texas Instruments took it down. Nobody is supposed to know what the lid is for. Okay.
We've been shut down as a government clandestine, above top secret. Yeah, I'd love to know what goes in there because I can't think. It doesn't look like there's modules for, you know, a different.
Nothing else plugs in.
Well, only on the side. But,
Don't know
well,
on the
if
top
anybody
or on the side.
with all the access to the internet, I'm sure somebody can tell me. Right. Now, has anybody ever used a new brain? I do intend to have a look at one of these soon. And when I say soon, I mean whenever I get around to it, one day before I die. Because a little bit before lockdown, we had a box of these. Somebody donated them, they had lots of them. They had an external hard disk module, although some of it all looked quite rusty, so I'm not sure where they've been storing it. So I might do I can't call it a trash to treasure because the legal eagles will shut me down. So yeah, some kind of thing. Maybe Neil will want to do it.
Patina to pristine.
Patina to Pristina. Who would have thought that one up? That's good.
I think somebody said
right,
in the chat last week.
Patina to Pristina. That's quite good, actually.
Alan says, better be quick, you're no spring chicken, getting older on Friday.
Yes. Alan is referring to the fact that this coming Friday I turn 47. So. Yes.
Costello says, yes I did, in the store back in the 80s, I wrote a basic Hello World on it. On the new brain, yeah?
Yeah, it's a strange computer because when I first saw it I thought, oh, is that it? It's got a, what would you call that, a vacuum fluorescent display, kind of like you get on an old calculator, and you can see that you haven't got many characters. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 character display. But on the back, power, expansion, TV for UHF, and a monitor, so I'm guessing that's composite. And then you've got a printer, and then if only this was true, because it says, oh no, sorry, I thought it said SNES, but it says SENS, SENS 2 and SENS 1, so I'm guessing they're Oh, there's like little adjustment potentiometers in there, so maybe that's sensitivity of possibly the tape 1 and tape 2 sockets you've got on the end here. Maybe that's for adjusting the volume sensitivity, would be my guess without looking it up. This is a New Brain Model AD from Grundy Business Systems.
So as opposed to BC. AD as opposed to
Well,
BC.
maybe, yes. So they're kind of fascinating machines, but I really have never used one. What does it say on here? 1982, sold by Grundy Business Systems Limited, the New Brain project was started in 1978 by Sinclair Radionics. When Sinclair realised that the New Brain could not be made for the sub £100 price he envisaged, his thoughts turned to the ZX80, which of course we gleaned on the very first stream, that was to be developed by his other company, Science of Cambridge Limited. Initially chosen for the BBC Computer Literacy programme, the BBC went for the Acorn instead when the machine could not be ready on time. Like I said, does anybody know much about these? What it's capable of when you plug it into a TV?
Maybe I have to do it on the stream. What we can do, show them in action.
There is so much material content in this museum. It's textured plastic, so we'll get the usual toothbrush out. Toothbrush are actually quite good for it, because you know they're designed not to wreck your teeth and scratch everything in sight, so they're quite kind. Yeah, it's coming up nice.
Ben says, imagine if we'd all been using ZX80s in school, that would have been painful.
Okay. You might have a lot more patient children though, in terms of, you know, just, or you'd have a lot of computers out on the front lawn. I don't know, yeah, I'm not sure. Certainly I learnt my patience from Grandpack Wobble, etc. But the keyboard on those, my only presumption is that they wouldn't have used those keyboards. It would have gone into something else. I can't imagine one of those membrane keyboards lasting more than a couple of weeks with the average school child hammering away at it.
Stella says there's a Dutch New Brain user group, believe it or not. Guess how long it lasted?
What, sir?
A Dutch New Brain user group. Guess how long it lasted?
Oh, when we're talking back in the day, or that's either going to be like really short, or they're probably still going today.
Ben says, I don't think the ZX80 would have survived the classroom.
I don't think so. As a computer, if they get into a different case, and down in the stores we've got various cases from Memotech and I think DK-Tronics and all those kind of the companies that got into the peripheral markets for those computers, but
They're still going.
they are still going.
They're not.
Oh, they're not still going. So there were some really good sort of sturdy keyboards with all the graphics on them, just like on a normal ZX81 or Spectrum keyboard. So I expect that it would have had to have gone to schools, or maybe that was an option they would have given schools.
Alan says they had Archimedes at school, only cared on the wet days as we were allowed to play Lemmings.
Lemmings? Oh no. This is why I have to remember how much younger some people are than I am, yes. Yeah. When was Lemmings released? Was that 92, 91? Something around there, wasn't it? Or was it 90? it was a shame to see what happened to the museum, the Computing History Museum in Cambridge the other week with the flood, but I believe they're getting that under control. I read it was due to a sort of a water main leak, which until somebody finds it, that's a lot of water. When we had our leak here at Christmas, that was a wastewater pipe, and once we'd managed to find somebody in the offices above to basically tell them to stop using water, which you'd think would be quite easy, but was a lot harder than it should have been. Thankfully that kind of cut down the amount of water coming down into the museum, but yes, that's how do you guard against that apart from making sure all your stuff's in a place where you don't have stuff around, and that's easier said than done. But I think they were lucky in that they keep their collection upstairs and the flood was downstairs, so thankfully it didn't damage their collection, so that was good to hear.
It says their last newsletter is from November 2002. They had at least 5 members, but all the articles in that last newsletter were written by one person.
Oh, that's really good where places keep going for that long. The Dragon that was donated to the museum, there was a few Dragon 32s and some Coco, and that had some Dragon newsletters that went, certainly late 90s, when, you'd imagine that most people had stopped using those computers.
Alan says, I'm not that much younger.
You're a little bit younger. A little bit younger, as you like to tell me.
Says he's
Still a nipper. Yes, I still go around at 100 miles an hour, walking around doing stuff. And where I used to work, they gave me the nickname of the Road Runner because of the speed I used to go around the site doing desktop support. But I'm hoping as I get older, I'll probably just slow down to normal speed, whatever that is. But until then, except for when I'm driving, then I'm more like driving Miss Daisy. I used to drive quite quickly around the place, not exceeding the speed limit, I might have, but in terms of just efficiently driving. But I've slowed down a lot now, mainly because the roads aren't what they used to be. There we go, one clean new brake. I'll be interested to have a look at that at some point. Like I said, there's a whole box of them to rescue and to decide which ones to keep and which ones to sell, to bring some funds into the museum.
Vincent's 42, somebody's given you.
Ah, good. You are. Which one should we go to? I'm kind of skirting around the 464 at the moment because I might end up taking all stream doing that one, so I won't come to that one yet. But I will go down onto the next shelf.
David Pear says, wow, Neil looks prettier.
Yes, moderator corner. What should we call it? I'm not sure.
Moderation corner.
Moderation
Everything in
corner.
moderation.
Yeah, everything in moderation. Red wine, whatever, chocolate, everything in moderation. Knitting. No, you don't moderate the knitting. He's looking a lot better today. And she's both knitting something and wearing something she has knitted. So, all very good. Right, what have I brought over now?
Fancy has many talents, Steve says.
The Enterprise 64. And I would imagine nearly every one of you watch, except maybe Alan, watch Neil's streams. And we did a stream where we looked at, well, yeah, British computers, really, wasn't it? What was a British computer? Is that one? Yeah, this was, if I remember right, this was one of the ones where the company itself and where it was sold and all the rest, there was a little bit of a, can it be classed as a British computer or not? I think it was this one. And I had the 128 version that I took to Neil from the museum, because I didn't want to go into the cabinet and take this one at the time, because they had some people coming. And it's pretty much would have been a competitor to the 464 if they'd have got it out in time, but they didn't. So Alan Sugar got there first, and they just showed, it's almost like they saw each other's plans, maybe all the primary colour keys. You could be forgiven for thinking they came from the same design house, almost the same colour plastics. That's something the Amstrad could have done with, is a cartridge port. To have been able to even just have a few games that you could just boot up from cartridge would have been amazing. But yeah, it's a very similar mix of edge connectors to keep costs down and normal connectors where they're needed, and the expansion bus on the side. But unlike nearly all of the other ones here, its own built-in joystick, which underneath though is effectively the same as one of these buttons in terms of the contact.
The Stardust says it's a great machine.
It is. I think if we'd have had this instead of the Amstrad, I probably would have loved it just as much. But it's very similar. I mean, it's so 1985. So it was just after the 464 and everything came out.
Jeff says it's nice to see he's not the only one knitting on the stream.
Who else is knitting? Are you knitting? I'm not knitting.
Two of us.
Oh, fair enough.
We'd have a circle.
So this is says a long-awaited machine that didn't appear until over 2 years after it was announced. During this time, the name changed from Elan, then Flan, then finally Enterprise. It offered great graphics and sound due to the custom chips Nick and Dave, and the BASIC was supplied as a plug-in ROM. Is that what this is? That's the BASIC cartridge. And where did we get up to? It could be replaced with other languages in that ROM. Networking for up to 32 other machines was built in. Oh, that's good. So that's a bit like with the BBC with its Ethernet module that you could have got as an optional extra, but again, built in. Were they aiming for the schools market, maybe? And the keyboard also featured an integral joystick, which we talked about. And despite all of these features, the days of the 8-bit computer were numbered and the Enterprise locked, which is very, very true. Because of course 85, that's the sort of time when all the 16 bits were starting to come on and be advertised. They were still expensive, but you could see that the future was not something like this. But it almost feels, with its cartridge port, etc., like effectively Amstrad did with the 6128 Plus and the 464 Plus.
Alan's off to lunch, you'll see you in 2 hours.
Enjoy your lunch, Alan. Thank you for dropping by.
Ben says that design would have made a great 464 Plus.
Yeah, it's a shame because with the eventual 464 Plus and the 6128 Plus, which, when did they come out? It was like 1990, which was, way too late for something like that to come out. by the time they came out, you know, there was a reasonable number of cartridge games, and they're well sought after now, and certainly for collectors, you know, they go for good prices.
Literally, not enough enterprises were sold to build up a single complete network. So good stuff.
I think they probably sold more than that, but yeah, not to one person. I think that's the problem. I wonder if anybody's ever, apart from them, networked them up. I mean, we've got, I think, at least 2 or 3. If this, I presume this 128 has got the same networking. So I don't know. Maybe that's something we can look at. I'm not sure what it would give us. Because of course where the networking came in is if one of them can be a file server. Certainly in school that's what we had. In the corner was we had Master 128. In one corner was this Master 128 with this great big box underneath for a Winchester hard disk. I have no idea how big it was, but I'm guessing very small. Megabytes at most.
Some hacks, I remember it from some of the 8-bit magazines at the time, but I never knew anyone who had one.
I don't even remember it from the magazines, to be honest. And there's a few computers that I think I must have seen and then just not really, you know, gone anywhere in my brain. You know, did I see it? Did I not see it? If I saw it, I didn't really pay much attention to it. The Vectrex is another one where I'm pretty certain I knew about it, but then I didn't. And then I saw one and it's like, oh, what's this? And it's like, did I know about this?
Remembers the joystick being built?
Well, I remember a lot of things from the window of Dixon's, so we'd go down there. So in my memory, I've got this very distinct memory of an Einstein, which of course shared the same discs, 3-inch discs as the Amstrad, and yeah, that's another computer which I definitely remember, but I have no experience of yet. Again, we've got one of those in the museum. It's not out on display. It needs a bit of TLC, and it'd be nice to get that out on display. I think the key for this museum will be to find some off-site storage so that we can turn our storeroom into more display and other things.
Vince can't remember it either, but back then and without the internet, I only relied on my Amiga magazine subscription.
Yes, and oh boy, did I used to get a lot of magazines in the end. When I had my Amstrad, it was Amstrad Action, but then when I got my Amiga and I had a part-time, well not part-time, Saturday job really, and pocket money and stuff like that, I started buying other magazines. So I used to get my Amiga format, and then what came out, Edge, Computer Weekly, Amiga User International. I didn't used to get all of them all the time, but except for the Amiga format one. But just it got silly. Where you get so many of these magazines, you'd read about all this wonderful stuff, and then realise that you couldn't actually afford all that wonderful stuff because you'd gone and spent all your money on magazines. So.
According to Wikipedia, only 80,000 enterprises were ever manufactured. 20,000 of those were shipped to Hungary, where again, somewhat of a forward.
Very good.
David Pear says, as I said last week, find a cave for Neil and join up.
Find a what, sir?
Find a cave for Neil and join up.
Yes. Wow. We did have a chat about certain things, so he's obviously got his plans. I'll see how and if I can fit in and help. But the cave empire is certainly going to grow, I believe. So that's good to see. He's doing some really good work there. He's helped get the word of this museum out. And that's the thing I'm constantly finding, which is this museum was here. It was the first, certainly in the UK, the first home computer museum. But very few people actually knew about it. Even people who live in the same town in Swindon know about it. People who walk past it and not even kind of giving it a second thought. But and that's the thing with places, is you can have a really good place, but it's just getting that word out, getting the message out. So
Just says he still has the badge he received for having a letter published in your Sinclair.
very good. Yes, I like keeping things like that. I never got a letter. Published or anything. In fact, the only thing I had from one of the magazines was I won a competition, I think in Amiga format, and got one of those, what was it called? It's like a joystick, flight joystick thing. It wasn't great, but it wasn't potential. It wasn't proportional. It wasn't like potentiometer side. It was just like a big joystick, but it was designed for playing flight sims. I probably sold it at some point. I definitely don't have it now.
Dave says there must be a basement of that museum. It is.
There is, and it almost feels like there's a catacombs, because this whole part here, you've got
Service tunnel.
you know, the actual basements of these things, plus you've got service tunnels connecting them up, and they're the sort of service tunnels that the light only comes on when you've kind of walked enough into the darkness that it detects you and then turns them on. So it's quite. Well, you didn't want to go down. You're like, oh, I don't want to go down there. But ultimately, it just gets to some doors, and then there's like a loading bay. But there's several businesses that all share those service tunnels.
They got off on a bit.
Tangents are good.
They got off a bit of a tangent with the knitting. So Dave says that if there's a museum of knitting.
Is there a museum of knitting, Joe?
I have no idea. I've never.
What was that place I took you to? Was that not a museum? No, that was a museum of wool. Yarn.
Museum of Wool in Wales. So no someone says. Gustavo says, of course there will be. There will be one of those. A wool museum in Wales.
There's a museum of wool.
Dave says perfect for Neil. I think he means a catacomb.
I think, yes, we could maybe put Neil downstairs in the catacomb. Right, that was a
Who
clean
wants to know
cloth.
I'm knitting?
What are you knitting?
I'll show you in a minute. We'll just get to the end of the road. Oh, just as there is in Nottingham. I shouldn't have been museum of knitting. We've gone up a bit of a tangent.
I've been yarn bombed. Have I been yarn bombed? My stream?
Yes. I think you can. Yeah. You can.
I can say my stream has been yarn bombed.
Watch is buzzing to say move. Please come to tea.
Well, I would actually love a cup
My
of tea.
steps in.
Mrs. TDO has been loaned by her very active work colleague an activity watch that tracks steps. And
No, we're in a team.
oh, they're in a team too. Yeah, they're in a team
There's a
too.
thing at work.
Okay, we don't have to go into too many.
Okay. We're in a team of 6. We're currently 4th out of like 20 plus.
Right.
And it's purely because I walk to work that she's loaded to me.
So she's racking up the moves, but sitting there doing this is not enough to trigger it.
No.
So it keeps telling her to move.
If I was sitting like this knitting, it'd be alright, but I'm leaning on that arm. Apparently there's 2 clock museums in the Netherlands, which is, understandable. And the Tom Baker scarf just keeps getting longer. That's quite what I'm knitting. Hold on a second.
I'd like a Tom Baker scarf. That'd be good. But only to go and play Tom Baker.
Would you want? So I've made some scarves that have vertical stripes, more horizontal stripes.
Yeah, slices.
Show you what I mean.
And I'm sure Tom Baker is, by our age group, is probably most of our favourite Time Lord, maybe? Oh,
Here you go.
what is that?
Right, eventually, when it's much bigger, it'll be a blanket.
Oh,
With
okay.
white stripes.
So, Miss TDO, when she's knitting blankets now, doesn't start like you'd probably expect and go from one edge of one side down to the other. She starts in one corner and goes out like that and then back in again. Yeah. So you have to, what's the word? Not reduce, the opposite of reduce.
Increase.
Increase and then
decrease.
reduce. Yes. Okay, I've lost moderator now, so oh, I could nick her phone. Oh, I can see chat now. What have we got? Let's put you there a minute. What have we got? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. I didn't get onto the VCF festival, unfortunately, last night. What does VCF stand for? I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with that one. Is that and if Amiga Bill was on it, then it must have been really good. Is it only Amiga based, or is it more than that? Or oh, it's date. Oh, okay. Vintage Computer Federation. Is that an American thing, or is that a worldwide thing? Because I'm really not familiar. I keep finding things that I don't know about. USA. Yeah, that's probably why I'm not that familiar with it. And of course, Dave Haney, he was on, Neil did a tea break with him, didn't he? That was entertaining. That was very interesting to hear about. So what do they concentrate on the Vintage Computer Federation? Is it the hardware, the software, or a bit of everything? I did see Amiga Bill's tweet where he was setting up, I think, to do a presentation. Was this on Twitch, or? Looks like something I need to go and have a review of. To educate myself. There we go. Enterprise 64 looking like the 1701A at Space Dock, all nice and clean. Lost the chat. There we go, we are back. Proper vintage PDP, yes. Yes, very good. Oh, try not to fall over. Oh, what should we look at next? This is one that I know Neil would love to get his hands on. And that is the Sam Coupe from Miles Gordon Technology PLC. And I always, whenever I see a Sam Coupe, I'm always thinking, is that the right way round? Because it always feels like it should be the other way round, because it's one of the few computers that seems to have got a wrist rest put in. And that allows the disk drives to go in the front, where you've got an empty drive bay there, and I think you can get 2 disk drives in total. Right, let's hand you back to that. Yes, so it is strange, but it does work with gloves. And I even found the other day on mine that even when I was wearing a pair of gloves like these, the fingerprint sensor even works. How does that even happen?
Just warming up the greasy thing you put through the top.
But I know it's, well, it feels relatively secure because, you know, and if I try my fingerprint on Mrs. TDO, it doesn't open it, and vice versa. So I'm guessing it's able to see through certain materials, maybe, because it's one of those under-screen fingerprint sensors. So I don't know how that one works either. Right, so this is the MGT Sam Coupe from 1989, an 8-bit British home computer. So again, a British 8-bit computer being released in '89 feels very late in the day, and it's probably one of the reasons why it didn't do very good. Originally manufactured by Miles Gordon Technology, based in Swansea, the basic model has 256 kilobyte of RAM, upgradable internally to 512 kilobyte, and externally with an additional 4 megabytes added in 1 megabyte pack. So it feels very much like certainly things like the Amstrad CPC, where the enthusiasts, if I can say that, are able since to go and upgrade them to 4 megabyte, use page swapping and all those kind of things. So this is obviously starting to apply those techniques to a ready built machine. Storage medium was cassette tape, although 1 or 2 3.5-inch floppy disk drives could be installed internally as well. 6-channel, 8-octave stereo sound was provided by a Philips SAA 1099 chip. And again, it's a computer I haven't had the pleasure of really using much. I've got one of the museums at home at the moment on a pile waiting to be refurbished. One of the museums, Sam Coupe, yes, waiting to be refurbished, to be brought in, because it's nice to have things on display, but it's also nice to have things out usable. And where we've got multiple ones, that's what we can do. But they don't, you know, obviously the ones on display, it's nice if they work, but obviously sat behind glass, they're not going to need to be working. But it's nice to, you know that they do. But the ones on display obviously need to work.
Costello says he's of the opinion that they had to release something to try to make back some money from development.
Yeah, and that's the problem. When you start a project, when do you taking too long, at what point do you go, do you know what, we'll stop? One of the gentlemen that was here on Friday, he used to work for Argonaut Software, and he said the amount of software that never saw the light of day was unbelievable.
Pat says you should stream the refurbishing. I quite enjoy watching the being fixed, diagnosed, etc. Probably not alone.
So, I mean, obviously my normal channel videos, I video them and I spend time editing them together and getting the timings and the music and all the usual. Good. Live streaming the actual me videoing and setting up. I know Neil's tried it a couple of times. I know it's quite tricky because what you see in one video might have taken several days. I know Neil, because it's his full-time job, manages to get things done mostly in a day. But when I do stuff, it can take several days, really, depending on what it is. I mean, would you watch a stream where, it doesn't really get completely finished? Or is that just like this stream where I've only done a cabinet and I've done another cabinet? This is more a chat where we get things to keep the chat moving along.
Specifically with refurbishing, you could ask for people's opinions and whether something should be changed.
Yeah. No, this is interesting.
Stuck with reviews, you've got resourcing people to help.
This is why you've got to be very careful, because somebody at some point in its life tried to clean this before, and I can see a little bit of blue staining coming off the MGT sign up here, and that's why you've got to be very careful what you use on some computers, which is, if you're uncertain, just a damp cloth with some water is probably all you should be using to start with. Anything more and you might start damaging things. I learned that at quite an early age with my ZX81, where I just grabbed something from my dad's model making drawer that looked like it would be cleaner, and it certainly smelt like it would do something, and it did something. It started to melt the plastic, so not great.
Started to suggest you can stream yourself cleaning the house. I'm sure Mrs. TDO would welcome that. But you already do, so you just don't stream it.
Wow, yeah.
This pack says it happens on Twitch a lot. People fixing old computers and modding consoles.
Okay. Yeah, I watched Twitch. Ah, do you know what I was going to say? Was there a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
How did that get here?
Well, I walked around behind you when you were talking about gloves and fingerprints.
The magic coffee cup has refilled itself. Thank you very much.
Ben says, I like show and tell old stuff. Show and tell style of stuff. And I'm unlikely to get hold of the polymetric Windows interface.
So the Envision, yes, it's a. When I found that in the museum, because it is out on display now, but when I found it, it was like, oh my god, I didn't think I'd ever see one of these again, because I hadn't seen one for sale. So when that came available, I just had to get that working. It wasn't 100% complete. It didn't have the keyboard. It didn't have the remote control, but it did at least have all the front flaps and stuff that a lot of them seem to be missing. I've since seen a couple for sale from Italy, but they were missing flaps and stuff like that and didn't look anywhere near as good. And all the ones I've seen since as well didn't have the optional MPEG card on board, because that was ultimately, if you're going to have this thing under your TV as some kind of multimedia, Pentium P75 isn't going to cut it. You need that extra oomph provided by the MPEG card. So yes, thank you. I enjoyed making that one. And I set that one up in the kitchen, so when I do that, the kitchen gets a very good thorough clean first. Just because it's not a dirty kitchen, don't get me wrong, but you know, I do all the washing up and everything just to make sure it's everything's put away. It becomes a TV set for the evening when Mrs. TDO's at work.
You don't get that here, do you?
No, I don't get that.
This says, personally, I enjoy watching retro live streams, especially for old computers I've not seen in bits before.
There is something about. I'm very much a hardware kind of person.
So there's a black drip in the where you're cleaning, and the arms, so over the edge, black.
Yeah. So I'm very much a hardware person. I like learning about the chips, what they do, the capabilities, the resolutions, all of those kind of things. The software is what shows that off, but it's the hardware that I'm most interested in. So to get these open, to have a look inside. So where I've taken these for show and tells with Neil, just being able to look inside them. So I think the way me and Neil work is, if we're enjoying it, there's probably someone out there that will enjoy it too, and obviously we're all in good company.
Winston Hack says, I find them more interesting than the polished experts, to be honest. They show the diagnosis of work.
So certainly my latest Dragon video, where is he? Repaired this one, that was quite a... I felt that went well as a fault find. And learning a new skill of fault finding the faulty crystal was that worked well, I felt. Yeah, it's a strange, but at the same time, good-looking computer, the Sam Coupe. Too little, too late, like a lot of computers back then. When I used to read a lot about was the Connex multi-system from Flair, but I'm not sure exactly what happened to that. The team behind it went off to work on the... didn't they work on the Jaguar? Because they showed off the chair you could get, you know, and all the extras, and not a lot happened in the end. Keyboard on this one's not too bad. Just a little light freshen up. What's the view on console modding? I don't mind if the mods are done in such a way that they can be undone. I'm not a big fan unless there's something where there's millions made, which I guess on the newer consoles that's probably the case, of drilling and changing things. Certainly the things I've modded, I've done in such a way that I could actually put them back as they were, if I felt like it. What kind of views do you enjoy during a live stream? Because I was chatting to Neil about it. So now we've got this computer that I've taken delivery of, and I can set up as an OBS streamer and connect additional cameras and things like that to it. We're obviously talking about, you know, like a main camera like this, but also overhead or close-up shots of the computer. What kind of... When you're watching streams, what works, what doesn't work for you?
I think this is a response to the previous discussion. Perhaps as the ones for being able to plug into newer TVs are okay, but if it's more extensive than that, it feels like great.
Yes, and that's what I did, an early video that I did on the Video Master Superscore was to composite mod it. But I did that in a way that I desoldered the RF modulator, so that's kept in a separate little bag, and then I used that space to host a little circuit board to do some composite video mod. So I could put it back if I wanted to, but I didn't have to drill any holes, because when I removed the video modulator, that gave me some space for the wire to come out. I didn't need anything more than that.
And says close-up shots, but I also prefer on-screen presenter rather than just seeing someone's hands throughout the video with a bit of history thrown in.
Oh yes, the disembodied hand. Certainly, in terms of my equipment, I'm taking this off a minute because there's some stuff on the back here I need to get purchased. Certainly, in terms of the setup I've tried to accrue at home, one of them is a microscope, so that allows me to get those really, really close-up shots. Because the thing I always found frustrating sometimes was when if people tried to show a really close-up, it was out blurred or etc. So it's just nice to have that range of shots from wide to, you know, medium to real close-up, and then to use whichever the appropriate one is. That could even be possible on a live stream, because that microscope does have HDMI output as well.
Laura says good morning.
Of course. Good morning, Laura. Yes. Coming all the way from America. West Coast, correct? We've got some sort of white tack, blue tack type stuff. Just trying to get that off. Doesn't want to come off.
Starter says, I'd like more as sympathetic as possible. Don't really care that much for common systems.
Or where's your cut-off for common systems?
Laura says, Santa Monica, California, the second best place on earth after Einstein.
Santa Monica. It's been a long time since I've been to the west coast of America. It was 2001. We were San Francisco down to San Jose, I think, the furthest south we got. And then the furthest inland was probably Yosemite National Park. I think the furthest north we probably got would have been the Napa wine. Yes, we did a Napa wine tour, Napa Valley. Are you anywhere near where all the fires have been? Because of course that's, just seeing all of that happening is terrible.
Simon Barnes says, I'm not bothered what you want to do with your own computer. If it makes it more usable, then why not? The only line I draw is if it was very rare or in a museum.
Yes, exactly, and that's why these get a clean. When I work on them, if I borrowed one, they'll get a clean, they'll get fixed if they need it. But trying to keep everything as original as possible. I mean, when I did the Play Choice 10 with Neil, there was a ridged rubber sort of foot rest part where the original rubber had kind of frayed at the edge, and I think the original just sort of went over and down, and we could have taken it all off and got it replaced, but that probably would have gone the same as well. So I found a sympathetic repair was to use the carpet joining strips. It's one of those bent to the right shape, and it sort of bridged that gap and meant that it would hopefully save it from further damage.
Gustavo says, Atari 2600 Genius, for example, by all means put in some holes for the composite connectors.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting on some computers. I've seen some Gotek mods for the Amigas where they've managed to use such fine cables they can come out through the grill and then have a 3D printed thing that sits on top. So I'm wondering on other ones whether there's a similar technique that could be used to add ports and things like that with the cables running through existing slots and holes, so that again it can be just easily undone. You're not damaging the thing itself.
So Ben says, and Master System 2, I modded mine for composite. And Gustavo says he cut a hole in the top of his Amiga 500 to mount a display for the Gotek. As an Atari fan, I didn't feel much remorse.
Yes, so rather than that, I would prefer the ones where they feed the wires through the existing grill. That does look good, but yeah, I guess we're not short of some of these computers. Certainly the Amigas. Certainly when things got a bit more mass-produced. Some of these 8-bit computers, who knows how many there are left, but there we go. Not looking too bad now. Not whiter. Certainly hasn't yellowed, and that's something within this museum. The blinds are always kept shut. So there's very little natural life in here. Natural.
There's no natural
There's
life.
no natural life here. No. No, there's no natural light.
Indigenous people.
Yes, just us. But the ceiling lights are, I believe they're LED. They're designed not to put out, UV light to damage the plastic. This is interesting. On the back of the Sam Coupe, you've got the SCART socket. So whenever you saw that, you thought, oh, that's a reasonably modern computer. I'm not sure what most of the other ports are because they're not actually labelled. There's a couple that kind of look like Midi, but whether they are, I'm not sure. There's a reset button. There's a standard 9-pin, what looks like 9-pin joystick port. In fact, there's lots of ones. I know one of these is the power one, so I suspect it's that one. There's a couple here. I'm guessing some kind of parallel or serial. I don't know enough about the Sam Coupe. I need to know more. And of course the connector on the back for the expansion bus. But yeah, nice looking computer, but too little too late, like with a lot of them, I guess.
So Laura was pretty close. The smoke was visible over the mountains, and you could definitely smell the fires, but luckily they didn't reach us here.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Ben Rattigan also cut a hole in an Amiga 500 for the same reason.
You're teasing me now that you've gone and cut holes in Amigas.
Costello says he would never cut a hole in a Sam Coupe. So.
No, that's good. I'd never cut a hole in an Amiga.
Dave's back. How many rows have I done? 16. And how many
more rows than I've done.
Yeah, how many computers have you cleaned? And he says, I thought you were an expert in ports. Costello says, yes, they are MIDI ports.
Ah.
You can also use the MIDI ports for networking.
That is true. The MIDI port is basically
just...
just...
stuff now, it's great.
Yeah, a MIDI port is basically just a serial type communications bus, I guess. Yeah, you can always kind of tell MIDI ports because they look like the usual audio port, sort of old-fashioned audio ports, but there's always two of them together at the very least. In and out, maybe three if you've got a through. Yeah, I've not really used MIDI much, but I can spot it. Right. Right, we have another computer where the main power supply is built in, so a bit like BBC Bs, etc.
This question. So Keith, what does MIDI stand for?
Musical no.
The second obvious.
I know it's digital interface. It's something like musical interchange digital interface, I think. Is that right?
Musical instrument digital interface.
Musical instrument digital interface.
From
Yeah.
Costello, he was right.
Yes.
Didn't even have to look that up, Costello says.
When there's a lot of stuff in there and then it kind of like gets a bit dusty. That's where my brain is these days. Once upon a time I could, an Intel chip or something like that, I'd know exactly the bus and the bits and all those things, and then you stop using it, stop using that knowledge. I say using it, nobody ever wants to know it in the first place, obviously, but probably didn't have knowing it. Right, anyway, what are we talking about? We are talking about the Toshiba home computer HX10, 64K of RAM, and those letters which I always kind of never quite got the meaning of them when I was younger, MSX, but in terms of, I guess, the equivalent of VHS. It's a standard that multiple manufacturers could get into and produce their version of it. I don't know how well the compatibility was across the range, because I believe some had extras that others couldn't give. So feels a bit more like what the PC became, where you could have options to, within the software. I guess 3DO was another thing that they tried to do a similar thing, let the manufacturers do their own. What?
Stella says I'm very bad at TLAs and then put 3-letter abbreviations.
Yeah.
Ben says people can't memorise computer industry acronyms, PCMCIA.
Yes, PCMs. Yeah. Peripheral computer. Oh, I used to know that.
I think people can't remember as computer industry.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, that is true. No, but PCMCIA is a standard, and I couldn't remember what it meant. I used to know that one. Peripheral card. No, it's gone. It's gone. Show me it.
No.
All right.
Someone's put that. Do you want that?
Dave repairs. Behave yourself. Failed moderation, Dave. Hello, Dave. How are you? Yeah, foo bar is another one, isn't it? Yeah, interesting looking computer, this one.
The museum deserves a more interesting MSX computer then.
Well, what would you suggest? Because there's probably one down in the stores. Isn't the Yamaha one that Neil's looking at currently, that's an MSX? I think one of those is one we've loaned in.
There's only so much cabinet space up there, isn't there?
Yes, and that's something we were talking about earlier, is how do we get more on display without it looking cluttered? And that's something I've got to work on.
Row behind the camera.
Yeah, there's areas of the museum which, obviously at the moment you're only seeing a very small corner of it, that can be done more with. It's just getting the right display equipment, because the museum does a lot with very little. So a lot of the displays are made of desks that they then faced in MDF, and finding places to store things and display stuff, it's a constant battle, because space commercially costs a lot of money. So we are very grateful for the council giving us this space to do something with, because they see the benefit of it to the community. And it's a draw. This one's a bit
There
dirty.
are some suggestions for better looking MSX. The Sony Hitbit is the nicest looking apparently.
Okay, I'll keep my eye out for that one when I'm
MSX2
looking at.
is also alright on Philips. Winston Hack says MIDI is what Atari ST owners used to say when you point out that was pretty feeble compared to the Amiga. I never did figure out what it's good for.
But of course, the Amiga could do MIDI very easily, very cheaply. The serial port, you just bought an add-on for it, and they didn't cost anything more than about 20 or 30 pound at most. Some of the Amiga packs, the 1500 pack I had, that came with a MIDI port expansion. But again, it's because it didn't come in the box. So things that don't come in the box or on the machine by standard don't get used. And if it's not in there as standard, then the software manufacturers can't count on everybody having one.
Dave says CDTV has MIDI.
Yes, it is the only Amiga that has MIDI as far as I know. And certainly I've got a CDTV, I've had it since it came out, and it's never had its MIDI ports used, so I need to do something about that. And again, the PC could do MIDI quite easily through most sound cards. Through the joystick port, you just needed the right adapter lead. So what's not special about this one then compared to the other MSXs? Is it just the looks? Is it the Did the others have additional hardware that made them a bit more special, or?
The original comment was not interesting enough.
Hmm?
The original comment was not interesting. It's the first one in history that's been cleaned.
There's certainly a lot of these computers I need to get an experience more of. I was aware of them, but only in terms of the alternative pictures on the back of a cassette inlay, or in a multi-format magazine, the other pictures. Occasionally you'd walk into somewhere like WH Smith's where they'd have more various computers set up, but you didn't tend to see ones like this. It was all, you know, the usuals, 64s, the Spectrums.
It's a bit more standard.
Okay, so as far as MSX goes, it's pretty bog standard MSX. It's what the spec said it should be, rather than any extras that some of the hardware people probably added to theirs, the other manufacturers. Because that is an MSX, the one Neil's doing at the moment, the Yamaha. And I guess being Yamaha, they're going to leverage their expertise in all things music.
And since I would have to admit to being a bit of a Sony fan in general, their stuff in general was always has a feel of quality.
Yeah, there's people who act surprised that Sony got into the console market, but for me, because they were in every other entertainment market, hi-fis, TVs, videos, camcorders, all that home entertainment electronic, it was almost like, well, why wouldn't they be? They'd already got their feet wet with computers. I guess the question is did their relationship with Nintendo fall apart, and that's what forced them to go into it, or were they only with Nintendo to kind of get knowledge and then go on their own? Who knows? I don't know, but sometimes you think things are a little bit suspicious. It's coming up okay though.
Castaldo says there's some nice MSX systems from the Middle East, for example, with Arabic keyboards. User79 says his favourite retro computer term is keyboard gravy.
Keyboard gravy, yes, or finger juice as Neil likes to call it. Yes, it's all, yeah. That's why I'm wearing gloves.
Whose fingers do you finger juice? Stephen Jones has joined us. How many
Hello,
computers
Stephen.
are there in your museum?
Too many. No. How many?
Or not enough, possibly.
Not enough. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot on display, but there's even more in the stores that are not on display. And my dream would be to have at least one of everything that we've got on display.
I mean, there are 11 dragons altogether, aren't there?
Yes, so for example, there on some machines we have way too many, and they're taking up space that needs to be better used for other machines. And that's why it's taken a bit more time than I thought, but I'm going through the where we've got a lot of a particular machine, so Dragon 32s, they take up a lot of space. I've got them, we're going to keep 3, maybe 4 for the museum, and then any surplus ones, I'm setting up a museum's eBay channel to do something effectively to the same as what other museums do. As long as it's not accessioned, because if it's accessioned into the collection, it's part of the official collection, and therefore there's a lot of extra steps you need to go to before you can do anything with it, apart from have it in your museum. But if it hasn't been accessioned, or if it's been donated for the museum's use, and that could be to put on display, it could be to use, could be to sell, to raise funds. But I want to go through all those dragons and get them all working, get them all looking spick and span, and then keep some for the museum and use the rest to sell to get some funds. So yes, long answer to say a lot, and the aim is to get as many of them out on display. But it's not just computers. I mean, the curator has a particular love for the mechanical side of calculators, and so before people like me got into computers, of course, there were a lot of mechanical computing devices. I find them interesting to a point, and certainly as a mechanical thing, they're always a wonder to see working.
Costello says 11 dragons is maybe a bit much.
It is, yes, a nest of them is what I was calling it.
Ben says, it'd be nice to see some unreleased prototypes, but that would be some immense cost.
Yes, and I don't know what we've got completely. I'm slowly finding out. What I need to do is to sit down with our collections. What's his title? Basically, it's the person who goes through the collections and keeps them logged on computers and things like that, to just have a little browse through the database to see what we believe we have.
Dave says, keep scrubbing, this is ASMR. Ben also says, the development consoles Neil did a video on was really interesting.
Yes, he had a chap in, didn't he? And he brought some of the Sony, I think it was Sony ones, etc. That's being able to see all those things like that, because again, in the magazines you would get to see things like, wasn't it SNASM and other such development kits, where you would have the computer you're developing for connected to a PC or something else. I think the Oliver twins, didn't they use their Amstrad connected to a Spectrum to do all their programming and sort of squirt it down into the end device? So you wouldn't imagine somebody trying to code for hours on a Spectrum keyboard, but another computer with a better keyboard connected, do all of that development, and then just be able to squirt it down a cable and off you go. And that's, some of those were really fascinating to see on those consoles.
Laura says she has a selection of development consoles, including a very modern one, but she uses that for work.
Ah. What is it? Do you know what, Laura? What is it that you do? I see some of your tweets and you talk about coding and projects and stuff. Are you allowed to tell us what you do?
Secret government stuff.
Secret government stuff. Is that what it says?
No. That's my guess. Costello says, ooh, do have Curtas on display. Curtas, C-U-R-T-A.
Curtis? Do you have Curtis? Oh, right, yes. Mechanical things. The mechanical, yes, is the answer. Do you know what? If you'd have asked me that term the other day, I didn't know myself. But there's a box of some bits come in that I found when I was here on Friday, that I messaged the curator and said, is that stuff coming in all right? And he said, it's stuff coming in. Of which one of the bits I've got under here, if we can get onto it. But
Keep scrubbing then.
Yes, he did say. Yeah, he did say that in the box was a Curta, and I was like, "What's that?" kind of thing. And I did have to educate myself on that. But yes, we do have Curtas. Do you want to explain, or shall I? I think. Do I know enough to explain? Effectively, they're mechanical calculators, or almost like is it like a slide rule? Certainly, the thing I found in the box when I found it is like a circular slide rule. The thing I found, whether that's what he meant, but we have the calculating machines and the crank the handle and.
Laura says she's an artistic director stroke designer for a software publisher over here. Loads of fun and stress combined. Smiley face.
Did you move for work then? Is that because you've not long moved, haven't you?
Stephen Jones says, I used to code on an Einstein Untitled and transfer via RS-232 to Spectrum.
Yes, again the Einstein, good keyboard, disk drives. It's all decent monitor. You could do all of that, squirt it down to a Spectrum, and off you go. Did anybody used to create games directly on a Spectrum?
Costello says it's a really nifty cylindrical mechanical calculator.
Yes. Yes, there is a cabinet. Joe, have a look. I can see one from here without my glasses. At the top of that cabinet, just over to the right of the bigger cabinet, what is that? I think that is a curtain.
Yes, that is good.
Is that what it says on it?
Yes.
Do you want to unlock that cabinet, if you can find the number on it? And we will show those of us who didn't know what a curtain was. I kind of knew it existed, I just didn't know the name for it. Right. This Toshiba has a lot of textured, a lot of grills, and a lot of places to get dirt, but it's coming up. It's coming up nice, even if it's taking some time.
Here we go, show tab. Book. I think that's just the case from it, that was separate. And here's the information.
So I don't know how well you can see it, but this,
Go around and have a look to see
with the handle,
if you can hold it a bit closer.
right,
Oh no, don't stretch. All over.
right, I don't want to drop it. This is a curtain, so it's got dials on the top, sliding dials on the side, and then I think you set it all up and then you rotate it, and I'm sure it'll do what some of these larger mechanical calculating machines do. And I hate to know how complicated it is inside, but to look at, it's quite a thing of beauty. It's the sort of thing you definitely want as a desk ornament these days. And this one came with a book on calculation techniques. So a mechanical calculator. Let me put that back over here.
Steve Jones says, yes me, I could use one hand on the rubber keyboard. Laura says, I did earlier this year, we're still not fully unpacked. And Gustavo says it's extremely complicated inside.
It is. I can imagine to be able to do that. And this one comes with this nice little carry case. So I'm guessing
damage the parts.
the man of the, or the woman of the day would have had this in their briefcase, and I don't know, maybe an accountant, somebody like that would have this, and it would go in their. Shall I read? See what it says on the thing. Curter calculator, 1948. The Curter was a small, hand-crank mechanical calculator introduced in 1948. It had an extremely compact design, a small cylinder that fits in the palm of the hand. It could be used to perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and, with more difficulty, square roots and other operations. The Curter's design is a variant of the Leibniz arithmetic.
So you can say Leibniz, but not arithmetic.
No, it's that arithmometer.
Arithmometer. Okay.
Arithmometer. Yeah. Teeth around that one. Accumulating values on cogs which are added or complemented by stepped drum mechanism. So effectively, it's your Casio calculator of the day. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, so there we go. We do have those and slide rules and valves and all sorts of stuff on display. And then we've got an area dedicated to consoling. And when kids come here, you can imagine that's where they will end up and spend quite a lot of their time playing. I think the latest thing in terms of what we've added, just to try and keep the modern youth's attention, we've added a switch to the gaming area. But Xbox 360 is probably the nearest we go, apart from the Switch. Because to some of us, you think, oh, well, that's quite recent, but to young kids, an Xbox One is ancient history to them. So I do think sometimes there's a danger that museums can sort of have an arbitrary cut-off date for new things. But ultimately, and I think this is where the creator and the chairman, when they found this museum, this was back in the sort of 80s, 90s, they started their collections because they could see stuff was getting thrown away. And they kind of thought forward to think, well, if this keeps on going, there's going to be nothing around to show people. And it's only people like them and people like us who keep things that don't just throw them away, that mean that these things aren't still around. There we go. This is more shiny plastic on the side, so that's good. That polishes up quite quickly. And on this one, we've got an expansion bus with a cover, video, audio, RF, and the cassette. Then we've got a printer port on the side here, and a couple of standard 9-pin joystick ports. Although when I say standard, obviously a lot of the joysticks had 9 pins, the same Atari connector type thing, but most of the joysticks had to have a switch on the bottom for multiple different types. So that's the Toshiba, which I'm guessing.
Starlo says Curtis invented the world concentration camp design. He worked on Vectrex.
Oh wow.
Mum says that's my problem. Nothing gets put in the trash because someday it could be used.
Yeah, and I do occasionally at home have a bit of a clear out, and sometimes several months later or a year later you go, oh, I'll just go and get that thing, and you can't find it, and then you think back and you think, yeah, I sold it, got rid of it, whatever. Oh, right, here we are, the Atari 800 XL.
Tell Reese.
Hmm?
Tell Reese.
Yes, if Reese isn't in chat, he will probably sniff this and be here in a moment. But
I haven't seen it.
no, right, Atari 800 XL. I think I need to check some dates on this one because I think this is the one Neil said you need to check the date on it, because I think the date on here is the 400, not the 800, but it says 1979, announced in late 1978. The machine was not available until November 79. Originally the 800 was shipped with 8K memory, but as memory prices continued to fall, Atari eventually supplied machines fully expanded to 48K, using up all the slots. It was a complex and expensive machine to build, consisting of multiple circuit boards, mostly enclosed by massive die-cast aluminium shielding.
The Starlo's a fan as well.
What, this? Yes.
It says the Atari 8-bits are great machines. Not were great machines, but are great
Are
machines.
great machines.
Are great machines.
Yeah. Well, you know, Atari had a... Am I right in saying that the people who did the chipsets for these are some of the same people who then went to Commodore to do the Amiga? I'm not sure. Is there that lineage there? I thought there was a lot of sort of cross-pollination with the teams, shall we say? It's interesting as well about the shielding that it talks about, because a lot of the British machines didn't have a lot of shielding, because for the British market there wasn't that requirement for the RF shielding, etc. But machines for America or on the continent, edge connectors weren't allowed because they produced noise. The shielding had to be a lot better, so yeah, maybe that put up the cost, who knows.
Costello says Neil is right on that. The info on that card is indeed about the 400.
Yeah, Yeah, that's right. Whether Neil would have been able to say that until he'd done it? No, he's like me, I'm sure. You become an expert for a while after you've done your studying.
The XL only has a single PCB.
Okay. It's not a... Again, some of these are not machines I have that much experience with. The Rescue on Fractalus. Yeah. That's an interesting name on this one. That has a bit of a write-up in the book I read once called Droid Maker. If you ever get to read that book, that's a fascinating book about the pioneering computer days at Lucasfilm that spawned so many things like LucasArts and a lot of the non-linear editing systems and Photoshop and a lot of other things that we take for granted today all came out of LucasArts computer division, where they were investigating things for well, basically film production that then were expanded for other uses. One part of that book that I found really fascinating and kind of almost blew my mind really was that they were considering 3D computer graphics for basically the space battles in Star Wars. And this is a film from 1977, and to think that back then even that they were mulling, could they do computer graphics for the films? But there were too many jaggies, there wasn't enough decent anti-aliasing back then, so they didn't go ahead with it. But a lot of the techniques they learned went on to be used for games or for other feature films like the Genesis sequence in Wrath of Khan. I think there was one small piece of computer animation that did get into Star Wars, and that's that little animation of the wireframe showing the how they would bomb the Death Star when they're having their meeting.
Laura's her first 8-bit computer was an Atari 800 XL. I bought it at the market for about 10 euro a long time ago.
Do you still have it?
Then some hacks says the whole story of Atari and its chip designers ending before Laura's great story. Ego chips, they're still cleaning!
Still cleaning, yes. I'm very much task-based. I will start a task and I will keep going until I finish it.
Ben suggests you put up some TVs in the museum, showing yours and Neil's share and tell history stuff videos.
Wow, we already have. So there was in one of the side areas this large TV on a real stand that somebody donated to the museum, which had been used for some bits. So we brought that out, and we've got kind of a corner of the museum. Obviously we haven't done anything with it for a number of months because of what's going on at the moment. But the idea was that with the Amstrad, we did the Amstrad display, and then we did the PlayChoice 10 display, and then that TV. I went and found a company who make these small, they're little boxes designed to run adverts on billboards. So you give it a video on a memory stick, you plug it in, you switch it on, it just runs that video on a continuous loop forever and a day, with HD and HDMI and all that. I think it uses Android, and perfect little thing, plugs in, and that's playing all the time. So it's a bit weird seeing yourself sometimes in the museum.
Starbucks says those early days of Atari were very interesting. Steve Jobs was Atari employee number 40.
Was he now? Yes. No, a lot of good things came from Atari. I just feel that, like a lot of companies back then, they lost their way. Sometimes the management is the reason, sometimes it's just somebody else is doing it better. And that's the fascinating thing about this industry. You get companies that come and go. 3DFX was a company I was very much a fan of, and again, just they had something, they didn't keep up with the development, somebody else was better, and it moved. You know.
Well, this is just safely back to the store with the rest of the collection.
Very good. There's something about having the machines you had in your youth. You can rebuy them, but sometimes they're just not the same. Well, obviously not the same.
Steve Jones says, I'm still partitioning the drive.
Oh, old or new? Are we talking old school partitioning on some old computer, or are we just talking PC you're working on? I've still got my boxed copy of Partition Magic that I used to use back in the 90s. I haven't used it obviously. For a long time. I used to find I spent far too long setting up my computers, and then of course if you were any good you got roped into other people's computers, so yeah. Which is
Stephen Jones says, old PC to put Linux mixed on was some use.
oh cool.
This hack says Atari did a lot of dumb greedy stuff, lost what became the Amiga, and Commodore did a lot of dumb stuff with Linux.
Yeah, I mean, we blame the management, and when you hear the techies talking, they that work for the companies, they blame the management. Was it their fault? Was it not? Was it? It's easy to make decisions in hindsight. Ultimately, would the Amiga have survived? Who knows? I mean, the problem with the Amiga was its graphics hardware just didn't keep up, and that was its prime selling point. The Apples basically reinvented themselves for the computer for people who didn't want to do what people had to do on a PC, which was to mess around with stuff for ages.
Stephen Jones says, I once installed Linux on the Amiga 1200.
Was that a? Is there a 68,000 version of Linux? Was that an an Amiga 1200? You just add some memory, add some hard disk, and off you go, and you can install that, or is that a PowerPC type thing?
Stella says, I remember Partition Magic. Everyone had a copy, no one actually bought it, except you.
I did. Okay, I'm not going to get on a high horse and say, I've only ever bought software. I've pirated a lot of software in my day. But there was a point at which I kind of went, do you know what, if I'm going to do this, I might as well get the stuff properly, and where possible. I started spending more time buying a game and playing it rather than doing what I would do on the Amstrad, which was you'd play it for a bit and then somebody else would get a new game and you'd go and take that. And I don't know, there's a lot of games I've half finished or part finished, and then I got into actually buying a game, completing it, and then playing it to death. And things like open-ended games like Counter-Strike, you buy Half-Life 2 or something, it would come with Counter-Strike, so you play Half-Life, get the enjoyment out of that, and then play Counter-Strike forever and a day. I still power that up and play that.
Says the Commodore story is one of Sam Camille carrying on running it like a small business despite it growing into a global business.
if anybody's joined us fairly recently, I'm in the Museum of Computing in Swindon, where I am a volunteer, and I work behind the scenes to try and keep the collection looking nice, to keep the museum repaired, that kind of thing. That's the sort of stuff I like. The museum has a website, www.museumofcomputing.org.uk, and on there, should you so wish, is a donate button that uses PayPal, and any donation that you make there will go towards keeping the museum lovely and helping us to work on it and improve it. It's a not-for-profit organisation, so the idea of this place is not to make money for people, it's to have a museum for anybody to come and visit. It's very difficult at the moment, obviously, because we've had to shut, but that wasn't my choice. And any donation there, no matter how small, all goes together to allow for the improvement and the maintenance and the upkeep of this lovely little museum. And thank you to those who, in the last stream, between them donated £75, which I was considering. This is a very low-tech stream at the moment. It's coming off my mobile phone. I had plans to do something a bit more with OBS, etc., which I'll talk about on my channel at some point. And yeah, that was very, very, very kind of the people who did that. Right, getting near the end of this Atari. I think what slows me down is the textured plastic. Textured plastics look great, they catch the light nicely, and unfortunately they catch all the dirt, all the dirty fingerprints over the years. And I'm hoping that given a good clean, put back in the cabinet for at least a few years longer, this should be nice again.
Stephen Jones says, Tower Amiga 1200, yes, there was a version of Linux for 16x.
Okay.
Perhaps as I figured VR will boom once it hits its £100. So they're technically just too expensive to really take on.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with VR is there's a section of society who just do not get on with it. It makes them queasy. I guess a bit like 3D in the cinema. Some people get on with it, some people don't. I had the pleasure of having a go with the Valve Index. There was a technology display at the local Steam Museum where they had various places, universities and places like that come along, and there was a company who brought some Valve Index machines, and I had a go on those, and the tracking on those was amazing. But I can imagine on some of the cheaper VR it can be sometimes a little laggy or not quite visually great, and it can just make you feel ill. I am looking forward to, though, having a go, if I can, with the new Squadrons VR game. Because I loved the Atari Star Wars game back in the early 80s. I've loved all the X-Wing versus X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and Rebel Assault type games. So I'm looking forward to that in VR. Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, with some hacks, a lot of that greasy stuff is down to the lag between the movement response and the screen. Yeah, I suppose it's just like when you're on a boat. your ears get one end and your vision's getting another end, but they don't quite match.
Well, I think it's a combination of the motion and the video and everything all tying up. So I think that's a major factor of it. I think as well, though, there's an element of, and they found this in 3D cinema, where we can look around and we know in our brains that if something is blurred, we can look at it and it should then refocus and come into sharp focus. But of course, if they're not doing any kind of retinal tracking or anything like that, you can never have that in a game. So on cinema, they couldn't obviously do that for anybody. So I think there's an element of that. Sometimes you find yourself trying to focus on things you can't focus on. And it just becomes a bit confusing. So if they're sympathetic to that, all they do, I guess, which is on most of the VR games I've seen so far, they just keep everything in sharp focus.
Just as I can't do VR, I get motion sickness playing Half-Life 2, having a VR headset and having me puking within a few minutes.
Yeah.
Costello says, if you like VR and trains, I can heartily recommend Derail Valley.
So there's these things that if it keeps people from it, if that is a sizable amount of the customers, then ultimately companies are going to make that financial decision, as they've done with films. Again, it's not worth it for them. I was reading the other day that the Steam index sales, the VR on there, seem to have plateaued. So is it a false dawn again? Who knows? Who knows? Sometimes I think with some of these machines it'd be quicker to strip them down and dunk them in a bowl of water, but yes, that's not what this stream's about. This is about just touching them up.
Computers,
No, it's not about drowning computers. No, we don't drown computers. Just the cases. I think that is as clean. That is as clean as I'm going to get that one. Right, how are we doing for time, Mr. TDO?
It's nearly 3:30.
How long have we been?
2.5.
2.5. One of the girthiest computers. CPC 464, a machine that I spent a lot of time with. This is the slightly later, slimmer keycaps. The one I had was an earlier with the taller keycaps.
Wensifax says the language of VR is interesting, the same way as the film has a language and rules that means people get disoriented and viewpoint changes in the film in certain ways. Stella says that's a nice video out. Ben Rettigan says, the beast! And Ego Chip says, yay, a CPC! We were saving it to last.
Well, if I get this one clean, I'm kind of ignoring the small cabinet on the end, which is full of, what have we got in here? We've got the Jupiter Ace, so I'm kind of not counting that cabinet at the moment, because otherwise I'd be here another hour or so, just on those. But there is something under the table that I do want to have a look at, because I've only used one once, and it was Quang's at Play Expo Blackpool. So I do want to have a look at it.
So what is something to make breakfast with?
Oh, very nice. Pass it around. It's not like Twitch. I don't think there's as many emojis on YouTube live streaming. But on Twitch you get to hand round, tea cake, coffee, tea.
Gustavo says I have a 6128, but I have to admit I like the looks of this 464 more. Ego Chip says I was once a 6128, but nobody ever has 464 green screen. Costello says Krang is a lovely guy with an amazing collection.
He does have an amazing collection. And the fact that he takes it around, I presume it's a business it is, but the fact that he takes it around to the shows gives people a chance to try things that, unless they want to get a large collection, just isn't possible.
Jeff says, who under the counter stuff intrigued? Is it just that it's over my shoulder? Or is it the
It's under here. Yeah, it's under here. I put it down there to keep it out of sight whilst I.
Do you buy his Game Boy Color jetpack conversion?
Yes, he does have that. I did watch a couple of his streams about the programming. Programming is something I'd like to have another go at. I was never very good. I never progressed beyond AMOS and Blitz Basic. I've always fancied learning machine code or something like that. Is it going to always remain a dream? I don't know. But I would like to have a go. Maybe do something for the Amstrad or.
Simon says the Amstrad looks very similar to the Spectrum 128K plus 2. Was that intentional? I can't remember when Amstrad bought Sinclair.
So here's the plus 3. I haven't
So
got
plus
plus 2 there. I haven't got the plus 2, but the plus 3 is very similar. Yes, basically, when Amstrad bought Sinclair, the plus 2 and the plus 3 were effectively Amstrad taking. I didn't do a very good job of cleaning that one. I might have another go at that.
Ages. Sound cleaner.
Yeah, I must have been in a hurry in the first stream.
I kept going. Oh, it's got on camera, doesn't it?
So yes, the Amstrad ones you can tell. In the same way, the original Spectrum ones, you can tell the ones from Sinclair. So Amstrad used more of a sort of anthracite, sort of grey, chunkier with the grills at the back. The Spectrum, the Sinclairs are more. They used a black plastic. Yeah, definitely a conscious effort on Amstrad's part. So I think Orion did a lot of the manufacturing for Amstrad, certainly in the early days. Because although we think about these companies being British owned, of course very little got manufactured in Britain, certainly not from Amstrad. Whereas I would imagine most of the early Sinclair machines were actually manufactured in Britain somewhere.
Gustavo says, I don't especially like the kind of plastic used to be Amstrad systems though, but that was Amstrad, I guess.
Yeah, Amstrad made things to a point, to a price point. They knew what price they wanted to get things out at, and they targeted that.
Winston Max was very strong for that. This is seriously ugly. I can remove it if you want.
It's one of those things. Computers were very tribal back in the day. I guess they are still now with Xbox clans versus PlayStation clans. But in the playground, your 464 was better than anything else that anybody else could possibly have, and it kind of sticks with you.
Simon says, so they were both out as competing systems.
Yes. So Amstrad were producing those at the same time. So you got to remember, I mean, Amstrad was in it to sell things, to make money. And I've often wondered, even though Alan Sugar still tweets about all this stuff that he did back in the day with the computers, did he actually care about the computers, or was it purely about just selling lots of them, being successful? Did he actually care about the users, about what we did with them? And with the Spectrum, it was all about buying something that was successful, packaging it in a way that meant he could make a lot more at a cheaper price point and sell them. And if that cannibalised some of the market of his own stuff, if that made him more money, I think he was quite happy with that.
Mr. Tip says hello.
Hello. How are we doing? Have you just joined us? I'm on the last one from the cabinet, but apart from the cabinet itself. But what I will do is not clean the cabinet straight away. I will get the next machine that I have under the desk out, which is not from any of this area. This will go into the gaming area, so it'll go into the console cabinet, but there's also a handheld cabinet, and it's like, which one should it go into? So in chat, have a think and see if you can figure out what machine I've got down here that could sit somewhere between those two cabinets. Certainly the primary colour look of the keys, some people love it, some people hate it. I guess if this is your first proper computer, which after the ZX81 I guess it was mine, having these, all the keys that were special, just sort of helped.
Says, looks like Alan Sugar starts to care now about the old computers, probably was thinking to make some money off them, and I can do the Spectrum games and the e-mailers.
Yes, but I mean, they did make the ROMs available, so they're one of the few companies that has allowed the ROMs to be used for free. So a lot of companies either haven't or haven't done anything, so people are either using them at risk or, but if I remember right, Amstrad actually put the ROMs out there to be used, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain that's what they did.
Winston Hack says, none of these computers were made to lose money. I was never an Amstrad fan, but making them cheap made them money at all.
Yeah, and you know, we're talking about, oh, I'm trying to think now how much this was. This wasn't it it ended up around 250 with a green, 300 with a colour, 299. Is anybody fooled by when they knock that off? 299.99. Oh, it's 200 and something quid. No, it's 300 quid. I revealed in the last stream that my dad told me a few years back that when he took a collection of the 464 that he bought us from Comet and looked in the box, it was the disk drive version, so he took it back and got him to swap it, and I'm like, you did what? But there we go. I did eventually get a disk drive, and it was very good, and I did enjoy having a disk drive, even if it was a 3-inch drive. And of course, those who follow the Amstrad CPC range will know that in the UK you just had the edge connectors, but when they were sold under the Schneider brand, under license in Europe and Germany and that, of course they had to have the proper Centronics style edge connectors, because I believe that was due to the RF emissions are less and controlled, and I think those have even got internal shielding, where again the ones for the British market didn't have any of that, which of course kept them cheap, and that's what computers were all about then, making it cheap, getting it into the hands of people.
Ben says Sinclair and Amstrad brands who are owned by the huge Comcast Corporation now, I suppose. I wonder if Alan wants it back.
Who knows what Alan wants. I did follow him on Twitter for a bit, but yeah, he was basically just him and Piers having a go at each other. So, and a lot of football stuff as well, because of course he got He managed a football cup team for a while, and I'm not interested in football. So. Right, I'm getting near the end of this one. Do we have any guesses for what I've got under the desk? No guesses? Oh, you disappoint me, chat. Come on, think. It's okay. I'll give you another clue. It takes batteries. It's by a large company who you are aware of, and I don't know whether it should go in the handheld or the more desktop console.
Synthesizer says, write him a letter, paper, not email, and tell him about the digital information preserving his own machines.
Well, I did get on when he tweeted about some of the Amstrad stuff. I did tweet some of the. I tweeted the thing about the 472 I'd done about his dodgy tax dodge. And I know a couple of the other museums did tweet about, you know, if he's going to set up a museum, maybe actually work with an existing museum rather than do it himself.
Simon says Swindon is a perfect place to live if you don't like football.
Yeah. Yeah. Bless him. But the only thing I remember about Swindon town though is when they got, didn't they go up to the Premier? They went from the second up to the Premier or something, and then they got kicked down to the third.
Some controversy, wasn't it?
Yeah, some dodgy something going on. So one day they're on top of the world, and then the next one they've been demoted, not just to where they were, but one lower or something. I don't know. Football. I did enjoy a knock around with a ball at lunchtime at school, though. So don't get me wrong. I'm just not a football watcher.
Is the computer room closed those days?
Yeah, I spent most of the time in a computer room, to be honest. Yeah. But some days, yes, we had to go outside and get exercise.
Go and play outside.
Go play outside, yeah.
Simon says, I think they had the record for the lowest points total in the television.
Really? Oh dear.
Mr. Pack says, well, people overlook paper these days. When you want to make a point, it shows you took the time and effort.
Indeed. If I was applying for a job, I'd probably write a letter, but I don't know. It depends on the company and how they want you to approach them these days. Right. 1464 looking reasonably tidy. Put it down. Put it over here. Right, that's all that's in the cabinet. The only other thing in the cabinet at the moment is the power supply from the Dragon that I've already cleaned. And I'll give the cabinet a quick clean in a minute. But, what have I got under the desk? Any guesses? Any guesses whatsoever?
Ben says the pause button is down on that 464.
Oh, pause. Yeah. Sorted. Pause button. It is unpaused. Any guesses?
No guesses.
No guesses. Right. Okay. Nobody's brave enough to have a guess.
Maybe you didn't narrow it down enough. Maybe you should have said it was red or something. I might not. It's red. Well, it takes batteries. Question mark from starting.
There we go. Earn Virtual Boy.
Jeff suggests links, but probably before you put it on the desk.
Yeah. There we go. And this is why the quandary is, does it go in the handheld cabinet or does it go in the standard desktop console? Because I think Nintendo originally expected this to be strapped to your head, but it was you know, it's just quite weighty. So they've made this stand in the end, and that's how it comes. And this has been returned to the museum.
There's obviously a bit of lag from America. There's Neo Geo Pocket Color is Laura's guess.
Oh, we do have those. They are very good. So, but this segues or ties nicely into the little chat we had about VR. There we go. And this is a machine that I hadn't played on until I was aware of it, obviously, but I hadn't played on it until I saw it at Play Expo Blackpool, and Quang had it on display. I think we've caught this one just in time because the batteries have just started to turn to the dark side, but thankfully no corrosion in there. These are energizers, so although they've started to leak, they've not actually rusted anything or done anything. So that's good that this one was returned. And
Laura's still guessing. She says Asteroid's tabletop grandstand game.
Laura, you can stop guessing. It's this.
Gustavo says it belongs in the same cabinet as the Vectrex.
Well, I put the Vectrex in. In fact, actually, this is probably where it's going to go, near the Vectrex.
So you've got the Vectrex games on the shelf above. So
yeah, we'll figure out where to put it. But it'll be. We've got a load of cabinets with all the different early consoles in. So yeah. Any love for the Virtual Boy? Did anybody ever have one?
Boy exclamation mark from Castado, so
Ah.
I think so.
Did anybody have one? Who bought them?
Castado says, I love the Virtual.
It is a. It's an interesting
He has
machine.
one.
So I said to the creator, is that box of stuff coming in or going out? And he said, coming in. I said, great. We haven't got a Virtual Boy on display. We need one on display. So let's give it a little tidy up. And then it's one at some point. I have no idea whether it works at the moment. But I will at the very least get it cleaned and on display and get a label made up for it.
Winston says, looks oddly modern. Doesn't look.
Oh, when was the Virtual Boy made? It's got to be early 90s, hasn't it?
Castado has a boxed Japanese system in mint condition.
One of these, very nice. We have actually got the box for this downstairs. So I presume this has come back in from wherever it's been. And I presume the box that's downstairs is for this. But it's looking good. The plastics are looking great.
Castado says, I'm one of my least played systems because it's the only one I keep in the box. I'm too afraid of breaking it.
Well, that is the problem. You'd be careful with it though.
The stand doesn't look strong enough to hold it up.
Well, I mean, if Quang can have one on display for people to Joe public to use, you know, I'm sure people paid it with some respects, but if it holds up to that, I must admit this soft sort of half fabric, half foamy type cowl for the eyepiece is. I'm surprised that this is looking as good as it is. I'm guessing if they'd have used some sort of rubber, it might have perished by now. But
Rogue Soul asks, any box cleaning tips? Got a mouldy ZX81 box that needs tidying up. It's a good thing.
yeah, I'm looking into boxes, but more in yeah, just looking into them. I do look into a lot of boxes. I don't mean like that. But that's more in terms of fixing tears and things like that. How best to do that. The problem with mould is that if it stained it, I'm not sure there's anything you could do. It depends. I mean, it might be possible to bleach or do something, but half the time it will just end up. You might get rid of the mould, but it won't be back as normal. I'm really not sure. I guess the main thing first is to dry it out and to at least brush off any of the surface mould. But if it's penetrated into the cardboard and the ink and things like that, then I'm not sure there's a lot you can do.
Ken asked, have you got an Amstrad Sky TV box with Beehive Bedlam? With a big smiley face.
With the what? The last?
It's Beehive Bedlam, but I think it's Beehive Bedlam.
I'm not sure. Probably not.
Costello says the shroud holds up reasonably well, but the plastic clips of the stand are very fragile.
Now he says, right.
That's something I should say before we...
I am being careful.
Keep it out the sun. Nintendo neck ache boy. Alright.
Does this clip off?
Don't do it till they respond.
Yes. I should have looked at that first, shouldn't I? There we go.
The Ego Chip suggests throw it out and get a new box. Nothing else in the mouldy box.
We have Mario's. Yeah, Mario. I keep having a look because my brain's getting short term. Right, Mario's Tennis for the third time. The Virtual Boy.
Costello reckons he should get a second one. I suppose that's the play with a nice one in the box.
Yeah, because I guess if you got one that's not as nice, that needs a bit of TLC, you're not going to be so worried about it. Comes with a headphone socket. Did it come with its own headphones, or did you have to add your own to that? I haven't looked in the box yet, so I'm hoping it'll have a list of what it should come with.
Ben says Beehive Bedlam was Sky's early effort in gaming on its Sky Digital boxes.
Oh, I'm guessing not very good. I had a Virgin box, and that had some games, and it was just so terrible. You'd press an interactive button and you'd wish you hadn't. You had to wait like several minutes before anything came up. It's like, oh. And if you ever did that by accident, you were like, ah.
Unfortunately, those Sky boxes didn't have any local storage for games. The games were only present as long as they were being broadcast as endpoints.
Okay, so it effectively got them from the channel information or whatever coming down from the satellite, stored them in RAM, but if you switch the box off, that's it, they were gone. And then if it wasn't available, you'd never get them back, I guess. I think the Virgin ones were a bit different in that Virgin's system was more like a two-way network, whereas I believe the Sky stuff used a telephone line as its return point.
And Hannah says exactly, yeah.
So who? Sorry, was it Custard that had
No.
those? No.
Custardo's got one of those and wants to get a second to actually play with. And Hannah was saying about the Sky box.
Yeah. So Custardo, the
The headphones were an optional extra, he says.
oh, they were branded ones, but they never came in the box. Right, so you just use your own half the time. I think on this one there's an annoying little white dot, and I think it's on the other side. So this would need a strip down to clean that, I think. So that's looking in really good condition.
And Hannah says the cable systems were two-way to some extent, yeah, but again, brackets AIK, those brackets, they didn't have any storage for games and apps either. So we collect all those TV boxes myself.
You collect TV boxes?
I sure wish they still had that stuff on them.
Has anybody ever done any kind of emulation for those? I mean, is it that nobody ever cared? Is that those games gone forever now, or does somebody have them somewhere?
And Hannah says, I do, I have some dozens, I forget how much TV subscription cards too.
So what drives you to collect those? Because that's quite a that feels more niche than some of this other stuff. Is it the nicheness? Is that a word? I don't know. I make up words. Yeah. The more I'll do live streaming, the more you'll know that I make up words, I'm sure.
I think I'm lots of English so far. After the nicheness. And Hannah says it's not impossible that they could have been dumped from the satellite signal, but it's not terribly likely as you have to be intentionally trying to get copies of them.
Yeah, I guess where I'm going is more the original companies that had all this. Did they ever keep backups? Like with all the development kits we were talking about earlier that have made their way out into the world from these companies, is that data out there anywhere? Or is it just all been deleted and nobody's got it anymore? Hey, that's looking nicer.
Says originally I sort of wanted to see what I'd missed. Back when I was a kid, we never had Sky, but others were starting to, so I wondered what the gear was like.
So you started off down a rabbit hole, and that's it. You're hooked now. Remember how to put this back on.
Then he moved into other kinds of boxes, as like these computers, they're part of media digital culture. I feel they deserve as much love as they do.
It's certainly a niche. I'll have to look into that a bit more. Like you said, it's sometimes for a lot of people these sort of TV boxes were their own computers. Their only games consoles. Certainly I suspect it probably, a bit like phones have got lots more people into gaming that would never have gotten into gaming because it's there in their hands.
Then says he remembers pulling a hard disk out of an early BT UV box and finding a whole load of Xbox and Windows stuff on it. Costello says chances are those games are gone, or it's in some companies are. No one knows it's there.
Yeah.
Without a way to retrieve it.
Yeah. I know what you mean. One day it might turn up, but the longer it goes, the more likely it's been lost. Yeah, I think we caught that just in time. A tad bit of corrosion on one of the bits that I'll need to sort out, but now that they're not in there, it's looking good. I don't know how easy it would be to get the battery box apart though, or whether I'll have to do it through the bottom.
And Hanok says, I have no idea if these companies, in brackets Sky version and the companies that comprise it, etc., keep any of this old stuff around for long. Rogue Soul says there was going to be a set-top box with Sega Dreamcast hardware built into it. Prototypes were made, but samples anything of that.
I guess that's a bit like, what was that? Oh, I'm going to get the name wrong now. Is it like Numia or something like that? It's like the Jaguar 2.
And Hanok says maybe they have it archived somewhere, but I'm not aware of it. Case Sega project would have been super cool. Costello says I couldn't say never at the battery box. New one? New one?
Yeah, I wonder as well whether she's got the battery box. Does it have any way of running it off of the mains? It's got a volume, it's got headphones. It's then got the external connector. I don't see a... I mean, it's got a 1-800 number on here, so I'm guessing this is an American import, maybe. Ah, there we go. That's the
It
thing.
says there is a mains adapter. It was also an optional extra.
Did it basically replace the battery box? Is that how it worked? Because it's just got obviously positive and negative connection.
Indeed it did.
Ah.
Thank you for the start.
Are those available, or are those rare as hen's teeth? Looking at this, I'm imagining that would be quite a reasonably simple thing to 3D print a version.
Oh dear. We've stirred something up. And it says stick some wires in it, it'll be alright.
Yeah, just shove some wires in.
Shall I find your paper?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm going to get. There's no point in wiring it up because obviously you can't see, and most of you probably know what it looks like in a minute anyway. But on the top, you've got your focus, and I think that's probably an adjustment for getting your. Oh, what do they call that? Just where you get it all aligned up so that everything's not in sort of double vision. Anyway, that's a nice thing. Yeah, maybe. Right, so now the boring part, which is just to give the cabinet a quick clean. I don't think I need to do the glass because I did the glass when I did the dragon, so it's a very quick clean with this.
Laura says she has a great archive of previous releases at the studios. I'd happily stay in there for weeks. Stella says there's a Japanese one on eBay for €40, but you'll step on conversion as well.
How's your knitting going, Joe?
Very good. I have to go to the bigger needle.
Bigger needle.
Says you can get those fake batteries which are designed for adapting stuff to battery bay to use an alternative power supply. But I don't know if that'd be a valid option for collection.
Yeah, it could be. I'll have to look into that. I'll have to have a good look.
Are you not I can't speak now. Are you not knitting the new pair of wool and white fronts in the winter? Well, it's triangular shapes of the very, yeah. So.
They do look a bit, yeah. Oh, any love for Kraftwerk? There we go. The model. So obviously, I don't know if that is.
That's a flashcard order for Midi. The starter says my Midi will probably get some use again this winter as a flashcard order.
Oh, is that a new flash cart or is that something that's been out for a while? Because I understand the games are quite expensive for.
The starter says yes, I dig that. I dig that.
Yes. Good old Kraftwerk.
It's new.
It's new. Ah. Dare I ask how much that's going for? Some of these carts are getting quite expensive now. I sent you all to sleep with my ASMR cleaning thing.
Alan's come back. You're still going.
I'm still going, Alan. Almost finished. Who knew it would take almost 3 hours per cabinet? That's time just goes like mad when you're cleaning.
Stella says, looking for how much I paid for it. It's been some time ago since I ordered it.
Ah, is that how much you paid for it, or how much you tell people you've paid for it? There's a difference.
Alan says, you really know how to show Joe a good time.
I do. She's having loads of fun.
3 hours for some.
I can't believe I actually thought I could clean all 3 cabinets in one stream. I'd have been in here all day.
Rosal says, the wife-friendly price and the actual price.
Well, yeah.
And Alan says, well, it's good thing fun, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. See, there's the price that Alan paid for his new Beetle car, and probably the price that he's told his wife that he paid for the new Beetle car.
Ben says his car needs cleaning if he has some spare time next Sunday.
Ah, that old chestnut. I used to clean my car a lot. Now I only get him to clean it when I take it in for a service or an MOT. So, yeah.
Alan says you told him exactly how much the bill is.
There we go. Right. Now, by the end of these streams, I've usually forgotten exactly the order that I had it in. So it's a good thing that at the beginning of the first stream, I scribbled down a little plan. So the first one to go back is the Dragon 32. Remember, we didn't have to clean this one because I'd already done it.
Says, I think that only works if the car was made prior to 1995. Vincent Hack says you should rent him out as a cleaner. Point them at these videos to show how thorough he is.
Alright, next one going back in. I think that was on the next one. Is our Texas Instrument TI-99 4A. Now, did anybody find out what goes in there? That is quite strange. After the stream, I'm going to have to find out.
Costello says sticker shock, $225.
Wait a minute. I'm not going to do that one next because I'm going to do all the ones on the right hand side first, otherwise I'll keep having to slide the glass along. The next one was the New Brain. And that is one I do want to have a look at because it's quite a crazy... It looks too simple, but I'm guessing there's more to it because it's got a monitor out. But
you didn't get the message from Costello, did you? Sticker shock, $225.
oh, yours too. Ooh, yes. What am I doing? No, I'm not doing that one. Get it right.
Alan says my cars are old enough, 1974 and 1980. And then he says Keith is still older than both of them though. Yeah. So am I.
Yeah. I am.
Left side first, Keith. Spencer. Alan says, yeah, but you don't look at it.
Squeaky metal on glass. Right,
That's
left first. Yeah, not left first. Toshiba next.
Squeak for minutes. ASMR ribbon, yeah.
ASMR, yeah. I do watch some ASMR videos, and it's quite funny because you get two things going on ASMR videos sometimes. Somebody's tummy rumbling, or something like, I don't know, acorns falling on their roof, or a car zooming around outside. So, yeah.
Tosh MSX next.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of love for this one, was there?
No. It's too bog standard.
But here we go.
Costello says, I can't stand ASMR, so he's happy with the squeaky for this.
Squeaky, squeaky.
Right through yet. Then the Atari. And Alex, the funny thing is, all this squeaking with the littlest machines have a mouse.
There we go. Atari at the bottom. Give those a little bit jaunty slant. Lovely. We want some labels. Where are they all gone? Toshiba. Where's the Amstrad? That's the Amstrad one.
Costello says, I'm the one who doesn't mind when someone scratches their fork on the plate. There's that. Now, Stella, don't about
I'm not supposed to be advertising the pledge, am I?
No, someone made the comment that you were pledging for more donations.
Ah, yes.
That sort of pledge.
For pledging for the Museum of Computing, www.museumofcomputing.org.uk. Hit the donate button if you so wish, and they will be forever grateful. I've just brought the Amstrad out because although I've cleaned it, there's when the light catches it, there's a strange sheen. So I'm just going to I think this Amstrad needs the same treatment I gave the 472, which was a complete strip down and wash. But
Costello says, I just donated a tenner, don't spend it all on booze.
thank you very much. I would love to have a whizzy thing that comes up and a little dancey man like this, or something,
you
I don't
dance.
know. Yeah, I'll do it instead. Yeah. And if anybody's seen me dance at a nightclub, that's pretty much how I dance. Yeah. Which is why I didn't meet Joe at a nightclub.
You met at school.
Yeah, we did know each other at school.
Ben's reminding us of the order on the right-hand side.
Right, okay. I just had to quickly give the Amstrad a little bit of another go because it, I haven't
It
quite...
says don't dance.
Don't dance.
Don't dance.
Sweet.
Laura says, Tandy with a built-in paperclip holder. Oh, it's the little
Hello.
speech synthesizer limbs.
Now, when anybody mentions paperclips at the moment, of course, we have to wonder, are we talking about that again?
No, I don't know. I think it was the paperclip.
Yeah,
the
no,
little lid on it. Looks like a paperclip holder.
Yes, I have noticed that comments have been disabled on that video, which is interesting. Right.
So right-hand side, Ben says, top bottom TI, new brain, enterprise sound people.
Ah, people are paying attention more than I am. There we go, the shiny Texas Instrument. Yeah.
It must be too late. Hang on a minute.
I've forgotten already.
New brain. Enterprise.
I need a new brain. There we go. It kind of looks out of place, the new brain, but...
Ben says I went back in time, rewound the straight. Well, yeah, that's
Oh, that's good. That's why I like taking photos, because sometimes I have to do that and go back and have a look.
Starler says on yesterday's video, Adrian Black got out his Dremel and was washing the Apple II main on the sink, but he's still careful though.
Yes. Yeah, I'm interested to see how he approaches it, but it just felt a bit rushed, I think. We all have those moments, I guess. I'm at a point still at the moment. I don't, I certainly don't rely on this my channel for any income. It's all purely a hobby. But I guess if it's your income, I don't know. Maybe the approach changes. And you said the Sam Coupe, didn't we, at the bottom?
Sam Coupe at the bottom, yes.
And the craft work. Let's put that behind the new brain. I'm not sure why it's in there, but
Maybe it's still chronological.
We have the Sam Coupe, and it's...
And Hellop says the aforementioned paperclip related video did receive a private, freely shareable follow-up from the gentleman responsible. If you're interested, he talks about, everything.
Yes, I heard it went to patrons, which I'm not a patron of.
Ben says, notice some Avon guys' other more controversial videos as well. Yeah. Starler says, we'll start worrying about Neil when K 4.0 turns out to be a shed he's playing with the girl.
I was quite amazed when I went to see Neil at the cave for the first time that it was actually underground. So, all good. Yeah, and of course I wasn't aware on his. I think Neil's got a Patreon video out at the moment, hasn't he, where he's talking about K 4.0, and that very first picture of going down into his old basement. So he is nothing but genuine on that.
And head up says now Rob with a shed.
Yeah. Right, there we go. Oh.
Vincent Hack says he needs a pulse slider to access the bat cave.
Right, that is finished. So let's get the camera. Can I get motion sickness? Come around here. So I'll give you a little tour a minute. Let's go quickly round here. So I haven't got the lights on round here, but I think you can see. So we've got the main entrance. Nice little C5 there. If you see the C5 outside, we are open. We've got the main reception area. And then you come round. Mechanical things, the calculators, the Curta items that we were talking about, mechanical calculation machines, apples. This is the area me and Neil were doing some things on with the Play Choice 10 and the Amstrad. Then we've got a room that we're working on a display in there at the moment, so it's a bit untidy. Do you know what? This here is an area that's very popular with the small kids, and they love making their Lego things, but I'm expecting when we open that's going to have to go, which is a shame. Again, portables.
Alan asks, has he got the C5 working yet?
I don't know yet. And then we've got the gaming area here. So it's not a huge computer museum. Downstairs we've got the store, and we've got the computer room where kids come for coding club.
And Hannah suggests mounting the camera on the C5 and doing a drive-through.
That would be cool. And then an area for playing things. So it's not all tidy at the moment because I'm here. But this is what we finished today.
And there's a walkthrough available on Google Maps, so I did wonder how much has changed since that was made. The new cabinets were mostly.
A little bit here and there. I'm hoping to get some new cabinets, but we're working on that. And there we go. So that's taken 3 Sundays to take out and completely clean all of these. And then the Sunday before was doing all this RGB lighting to be able to give it all a good go. So let's swing you round. There we go. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've had a good time, and see you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Bye!
Bye.